Major incident in Leicester.
On air, on Spreaker, Facebook at SJ Radio Series 10. This is Newsbeat.
We're going to go live to Sky News. Breaking news, of course. We had the show. We'll keep you updated, and we'll keep you updated for the next 3 hours as well. This is a Newsbeat special. Large explosion causes Leicester in lockdown. This is a Newsbeat special with SJ Radio.
On air, on Spreaker, Facebook at SJ Radio Series 10. This is Newsbeat.
For the next 3 hours, we'll go live to Sky News to give you updates on the Leicester incident and other news around the world and country today. It's 6 minutes past 9. Let's join Sky News.
Hello, good evening. We start with breaking news tonight, and a major incident has been declared in Leicester after reports of an explosion. 6 fire engines are at the scene in Hinckley Road in Leicester. Well, let's get a view from the scene now. We can speak to James Dillon, who's a student. He was near the incident, as we understand it. So, James, tell us your experience. What did you see tonight?
So we were around the corner at our friend's house, and we heard a massive explosion. And then walked around the corner, and you see the light of the fire, and then obviously the emergency services rushing from everywhere. You see the scene's chaos at the moment. There's loads of people around the police cordon, and just full of flashing lights and ambulances.
And how quickly did the emergency services arrive? You said you heard what you thought was an explosion. So how quickly were there police and fire engines at the scene?
Within minutes, I'd say probably maximum 5 minutes. The scene was literally covered in emergency services who turned up. So it was a quick response.
And I don't know how long you stayed at the scene, but were you there to see the flames being put out by the fire engines? Do you know how long that might have taken?
We're still at the scene now, and the flames have gone, but it's just a massive heaving thick smoke coming out from the building, and there's like a hazardous fire truck here as well. They're just trying to put it all out now.
And what about ambulances at the scene? Have you seen them there too?
Yeah, there's 3 or 4 ambulances here still now. There's 2 or 3 have left the scene already. So I don't know how many casualties were taken. But there's a couple have left the scene. So.
And describe the area for us, could you, James? We've heard it's a fairly major road, this, and describe the row of buildings where this incident has taken place.
Yes, it's a main road leading into the city centre. There's loads of restaurants and takeaways and pubs. I believe it was actually a corner shop that was up in smoke at the moment. So obviously there's houses all around, a lot of student accommodation with my friends around this area. So it's kind of a key part of the city.
Well, James, we really appreciate you coming on Sky News to tell us a little bit about your experience. Thanks very much indeed for your time here tonight. Let me just play you now an interview that I did a little bit earlier with a local journalist called Laura Chiliano. She's been at the scene. Let's listen to what she had to tell us.
As a suspected explosion. I don't know whether it's gas-related. The details are pretty vague. From where I'm standing, they're currently dampening down. They're trying to obviously put the fire out. I can't see flames, but there is thick smoke. It fills the air, and it's so thick you can actually taste it at the back of your throat. A lot of emergency services here, at least 3 fire appliances from where I'm standing, 2 ambulances, a number of police cars. It's got quite a lot of interest locally. A lot of people are obviously standing around concerned. It's basically this area of road. There are local businesses. There are flats above it. It looks like it's one of the local businesses where it's happened. From a few pictures circulating on social media, it looks like the building's completely collapsed. And as I say, just a lot of concern around here. One guy mentioned driving past it and a window pane smashed into his car. Another lady just described hearing an explosion, a big bang, came outside and can just see massive flames coming from the building. But as I mentioned, we don't know exactly what it is that's caused it at this stage.
No, indeed. But from what you can see at the moment, you talked about that thick smoke that, as you said, was so thick you could taste it. But you're saying no flames as far as you can see. Does it look like the fire engines have managed to dampen down that blaze?
Yeah, as I say, the smoke is so thick. I can't see from where I'm standing, and obviously the police are trying to keep us as far back as possible for safety reasons. I can't see any flames now. It's just literally really thick black smoke, and the fire service is currently dealing with it.
And the police themselves, I think, have referred to reports of an explosion. That's what they were responding to. Have you managed to talk to anyone around there that saw and heard what happened at the time?
Yeah, as I mentioned, so I spoke to one lady who just heard a massive bang. One guy mentioned he thought it sounded like a bomb. But as I say, we don't quite know what caused it. But, I mean, it looks like extensive damage. As I say, some pictures that have been circulating, when just after it had happened, there were huge orange flames coming from it. And as I say, the building just looks like it's completely collapsed.
So that was Laura Shiliani, who I spoke to a little while ago. Joe Tidy is here with me, keeping an eye on things as well. So what's the latest information we have on this then, Joe?
Well, we heard a short time ago from East Midlands Ambulance Service, who say that their hazard area response team is on the ground. They just tweeted out saying, we're on the scene at the incident in Leicester where the ambulance crews, Heart hazard area response teams are there. And I've just been reading up what they will be doing is they will be checking to see whether or not anyone needs help there. They will be looking for, of course, any biological or chemical or even nuclear is one of the things that they will be looking for, problems that may be caused from this explosion. They'll also be there to treat any injuries for the emergency services because, of course, what we're seeing from these pictures is a very serious fire. We heard from one eyewitness who lives 500 metres away, that said she felt it inside her home. So the explosion and the force of this, very, very serious. They will be looking to get this fire out as quickly as possible. They'll be looking to make sure that anyone in the area is, make sure they're safe. They'll also then be looking at the structural integrity of the buildings because when I've covered these sorts of things before, these explosions can have such a big impact on the buildings surrounding them. That is also a very serious situation. We did hear from Leicester Police earlier, who gave a tweet giving us the first indications of this incident at around 7:20. They said there has been a major incident on Hinckley Road, Leicester. All emergency services are currently dealing with this. Carlisle Street and part of Hinckley Road have been closed. Please avoid the area. This is obviously standard practice for them. They will hope that people will stay away. Of course, people don't in these situations. They tend to gravitate towards these sorts of incidents, try to find out what's happened, and of course to try and offer any help that may be needed as well. You can see from the pictures here there are lots of people in the area. They will be obviously filming it, and this is how we're getting some of these shots here from social media. Since some of these pictures have been taken, the police have extended that cordon further out, making it harder for people to get closer, which of course means that they'll be a lot safer, because we don't know in this situation whether or not there could be more explosions caused by the flames as they grow around the area. But the police are dealing with not only what's going on with that fire, they're also dealing with the crowds as well, and we've heard that 6 fire engines are on hand, plus, as I mentioned, the hazard area response team. So it's a major incident taking place in Leicester at Hinckley Road, and it's going to carry on throughout the night, you'd imagine, and there will be major disruption throughout the week.
Joe, thanks very much indeed. And as Joe was saying there, the safety of individuals in the area, clearly the priority, but the cause will be looked at, of course, by police. And Sky sources are telling us just in the last few moments that no early indications that the explosion in Leicester was connected to terrorist activity. That's according to Sky sources. But of course, we'll keep you all up to date with what police are describing this evening as a major incident in Leicester city centre, and we'll bring you all the very latest and all the updates throughout the night. In the meantime, though, the rest of the day's news, and there is now clear blue water between Labour and the Conservatives on Brexit after Labour's Brexit spokesman, Keir Starmer, confirmed that the party wants to stay in a customs union with the European Union. The policy shift has prompted accusations of backstabbing and betrayal from some Leave supporters. It means the Prime Minister is now likely to face a crunch vote in the House of Commons that will test both the majority for her version of Brexit and ultimately whether she can keep her job. Our senior political correspondent, Beth Rigby, reports.
Theresa May and her Brexit cabinet gathered around the fire at Chequers to thrash out a plan for Britain's future relationship with the EU. cups of tea and a bit of bonhomie at her country retreat, those around the table finally signed off on her negotiating strategy, a fragile peace deal brokered. But already today, a new front in the Brexit war's opening up, this time over Britain's membership of the EU customs union. Labour putting clear blue water between itself and Mrs May today by announcing it wants to remain part of a customs union after the Prime Minister's made it very clear she wants out.
The customs arrangements at the moment are hardwired into the membership treaty, so I think everybody now recognises
has to be a new deal.
There's going to have to be a new treaty. It'll do the work of the customs unions.
Countries and a customs union trade tariff-free amongst themselves, but impose tariffs on goods imported from countries outside their union. The EU's the biggest customs union in the world, including Monaco. It also has custom union agreements with Turkey, Andorra and San Marino. If the UK leaves the customs union after Brexit, it would have freedom to negotiate its own trade deals with countries outside the union, like the US or China. But it could also mean new tariffs on trade between the UK and the EU and result in a hard border on the island of Ireland. Rows over the customs union could bring with it a parliamentary crisis for the Prime Minister. There are a dozen or more Remainer rebels in her own party who are threatening to vote with Labour to stay in some form of customs union, even if that means defying their own whips and even defeating the Prime Minister. As one Remainer rebel put it to me, some votes are bigger than party politics. Labour scents blood.
Crunch time is now coming for the Prime Minister because the majority in Parliament does not back her approach to a customs union. And the majority in Parliament needs to be heard, and it will be heard sooner rather than later.
Ministers have delayed votes on the trade bill in recent days amid fears of rebellions. The Trade Secretary now hopeful a keynote speech by the Prime Minister will calm nerves.
I think that when the rest of the parliamentary party hears on Friday, as the Prime Minister sets it out, what we
She's
have
going to win
agreed,
over Anna Soubry, do you think?
Well, I hope that they will have an open mind and listen to what the Prime Minister says, because I think that what the Prime Minister will set out will deal with a lot of the reservations that they've had.
This Remainer looking unconvinced.
I think that the briefing from Number 10 to Papers yesterday said that by the time we've heard the speech, we won't need the amendment anymore. So that's obviously going to be a good thing. We will wait and see.
With parliamentary battles over Britain's trading relationship with the EU on the horizon, Friday's speech will be an important staging post on the journey to Brexit. But Mrs May knows full well that she has a deep gulf to bridge to unite her ever more fractious party. Beth Rigby, Sky News.
And Labour's shift in stance on the customs union is likely to feature prominently on tomorrow's front pages. We'll be taking a first look at them in the press preview tonight at 10:30 and 11:30 with the Deputy Political Editor of HuffPost UK, Owen Bennett, and News Editor at the Institute of Economic Affairs, Kate Andrews. Let me just bring you some breaking news coming into us from Syria and this area of Ghouta near Damascus, which has been the subject of a UN call for a ceasefire. We're just getting word from a group called the Syrian American Medical Society. They're claiming tonight that a number of patients treated at one of its supported hospitals in Ghouta appeared to be suffering the effects of exposure to chemical compounds. Clearly, we're unable to confirm that. They say that they have some video, obviously unconfirmed by us, which shows men and children being treated with oxygen masks. They're talking about 16 patients, including 6 children and 4 women, suffering symptoms that they say are indicative to exposure to chemical compounds that they have been treating at this hospital in East Ghouta. So this is a group called the Syrian American Medical Society that we're talking about here. They describe themselves as a non-political, non-profit medical relief organisation working in the area. They are claiming tonight that a number of patients treated at one of its hospitals in Ghouta appear to be suffering the effects of exposure to chemical compounds. We'll get more information on that as and when we can. In the meantime, though, the Syrian regime is continuing that offensive against the rebel-held suburb of Damascus, despite a UN Security Council resolution demanding a ceasefire without delay. More than 500 people have been killed in bombing in eastern Ghouta over the past week. This report from Enda Brady includes images of a young girl being pulled from the rubble.
On the ground in eastern Ghouta, nothing has changed. This footage from the White Helmets shows a baby girl being rescued from the aftermath of an airstrike, hours after the UN backed a resolution calling for a ceasefire.
I know, speaking to colleagues inside eastern Ghouta, that they are living in constant fear and they're worried that the next bomb might hit their home and kill their family. This is obviously a terrifying situation that they're going through, and we just need the killing to stop, for the aid convoys to be allowed into the area, and for the medical evacuations to occur.
There have also been reports of a ground offensive by the regime forces, which would indicate they're trying to eliminate all opposition before allowing in humanitarian relief.
This truce is useless. I mean, after 30 days, everything will return to the way it was.
In his weekly address at the Vatican, Pope Francis described the situation in eastern Ghouta as inhumane.
This month of February was one of the most violent in 7 years of conflict. Hundreds, thousands of civilian victims, children, women, elderly people. Hospitals have been hit, people have no food. This is inhumane.
French President Emmanuel Macron and German Chancellor Angela Merkel have spoken by phone with the Russian President Vladimir Putin, urging him to back this latest ceasefire. Enda Brady, Sky News.
Now, they're calling it the Beast from the East, and it's expected to bring Britain's coldest February week in years. Preparations are now underway for the arrival of the rare North Pole phenomenon, somewhat ironically called sudden stratospheric warming, which will bring bitterly cold air sweeping in from the Arctic. The Met Office has put in place a yellow weather warning for Monday over the east of England. The mercury will drop to well below freezing, with -8 expected overnight in places. They're predicting as many as 10 centimetres of snow in certain areas, with the potential for widespread travel disruption. And there are also warnings of possible power cuts. And overnight into Tuesday, that warning extends across the majority of England, Wales and Scotland, and upgrades to an amber warning in some places. And then by Wednesday, that warning for snow spreads to Northern Ireland and Plymouth as well. Sky's Fraser Morwood reports from Scarborough.
If you go and plug your phone in and make sure it's charged...
Elaine and John Bramley's East Coast home will be on the front line when the cold weather hits the UK on Monday. So the couple are hoping for the best, but making sure they're prepared for the worst.
Yes, I stock up the cupboards. My cupboards are absolutely chocker. My freezer is absolutely full. I couldn't get anything else in it. Except that I have to take the dog out. We could hibernate for a month without going out.
So you're well prepared?
Well prepared, yes.
Key advice for the elderly in extreme weather conditions is keep your home heated to at least 18 degrees Celsius. Make sure you have a torch handy and that your mobile phone and other devices are charged in case of power cuts. Check that you have a ready supply of food and any medication that you might need, and have a list of emergency contact numbers to hand.
In this sort of cold weather, we know that we see increases in illnesses amongst over 65s, very young children, and people with long-term health conditions like heart and lung disease. We see increases in heart attacks and strokes, as well as increases in chest infections, so it's not just coughs and colds. So one key thing we can all do is to try and keep our homes warm and look out for one another.
Homeless charities too are concerned about the potential dangers of the severely cold weather.
There are more than 9,000 people sleeping rough on our streets, and that figure is likely to double in the next decade. When temperatures do drop, there are emergency protocols that are put in place by local authorities to help people get them off the street as quickly as possible and into emergency shelter type accommodation. But this is only a short-term fix.
Dubbed the Beast from the East, it's a prolonged spell of cold weather that's causing havoc as it sweeps across Europe. It's being blamed on a rare North Pole phenomenon called sudden stratospheric warming.
With the temperature at around 2 degrees at the moment, it's a pretty bracing day for the families and dog walkers here on the beach in Scarborough, or Scarbados as the locals sometimes like to call it. But over the next few days it's going to get much colder than that, down to maybe -4, and with the winds coming direct from the east over the North Sea, it'll feel even colder. Not so much Scarbados then, more like Scarberia.
And with temperatures forecast to drop to as low as -8 in places, it would be wise to follow the Bramley's example and be prepared. Fraser Maud, Sky News, Scarborough.
Let's just remind you of our top story this evening and the breaking news tonight that police have declared a major incident this evening after what's been described as an explosion appears to have completely destroyed a building in the centre of Leicester. We know that police immediately sent 6 fire brigades to the scene on hearing the local reports of what was described as, by one eyewitness to me, as a very large bang. One person actually who lived 500 metres away said they felt it in their home. According to the latest reports we're getting, the flames have largely been put out from that fire. This is a scene from earlier, but there was very thick smoke still in the area. A large police cordon, a lot of emergency services still on the scene. According to Sky sources, there are no early indications that the explosion in Leicester was connected to terrorist activity, but police will still be working on the cause of this fire. All the latest on this developing story throughout the evening, of course. have all the latest from Leicester on our breaking news tonight. The police have declared a major incident there as they respond to reports of a large explosion that have destroyed a building in the city centre. We'll have all the latest on that very shortly. First, though, we're going to cross over to Sky Sports News for an update from them.
Good evening. Manchester City have won the League Cup final at Wembley. They put in a dominant performance to beat Arsenal 3-0 and win the first major silverware of the season. Arsenal had their best chance of the game after only 8 minutes. Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang from 6 yards was well saved by Claudio Bravo. Arsenal paid for that miss. 10 minutes later, Sergio Aguero out-muscling Squadron Mustafi and a superb finish to make it 1-0. City got the crucial second goal approaching the hour. Their captain Vincent Kompany with his first goal since May last year, and he clearly enjoyed it. Some great link-up play from City let in David Silva for the third goal. 3-0 it finished. So City winning the League Cup for a fifth time, and it's a first trophy for Pep Guardiola as City manager, and it means the treble is still very much on, with City still in the Champions League and of course leading the Premier League.
Why did you stay down here when the players went up to pick up the trophy?
Because it's nice. See it from here is nicer.
You said it's not about you, but is there a relief that you have won your first trophy with Man City?
It's for the Manchester City, not for me.
It was a big day in the race for the top four in the Premier League as well. Manchester United came from a goal down to beat rivals Chelsea 2-1 at Old Trafford. Chelsea's opener came from a great counter-attack after half an hour, started by Willian. He got a great ball back from Eden Hazard, and then Willian finished 1-0. United were level before half-time. Fine move finished off by Romelu Lukaku. That made it 1-1 at the break. Lukaku then turned provider for substitute Jesse Lingard to score his 13th of the season to make it 2-1 United. They go back above Liverpool into second. Tottenham have leapfrogged Chelsea into fourth place. An 88th minute Harry Kane goal saw them beat Crystal Palace 1-0 at Selhurst Park. That was Kane's 35th goal of the season and his 19th in his last 14 away games. Celtic have restored their 9-point lead at the top of the Scottish Premiership after beating Aberdeen 2-0. Moussa Dembele got Celtic's first before Kieran Tierney scored this to put them 2 up. Both sides had a player sent off in the second half. Tiger Woods is just finishing up his final round at the Honda Classic in Florida, but he's not in contention to win. And just take a look what happened when he played the 8th. His tee shot, as you'll see now, takes a few bounces, and then it hits a goose. And fittingly, he'd go on to birdie the hole, and the goose was unharmed, we're told. He's 7 behind leader, England's Tommy Fleetwood. You can see it live now on Sky Sports Golf. Ben Stokes lost on his return to England's cricket team. Stokes made 12 runs and took 2 wickets in the first one-day against New Zealand. New Zealand won the match by 3 wickets with 4 balls to spare. The second of the 5-match series is on Wednesday. There's more reaction to Man City's League Cup win live now on Sky Sports News, and we're back later.
Let's find out now what the weather's up to.
From the clear blue sky of a Doha morning to the fresh autumn breeze in the city of love.
Well, we'll spend the coming week in the grip of some very wintry conditions. The Met Office has already upgraded early warnings to amber as projected snowfall is likely to cause widespread disruption and extreme cold may become a threat to health. Western parts of the country will start Monday with a severe frost, but plenty of sunshine. Some eastern areas will start the day with a covering of snow, and further snow showers will become heavier and more frequent through the morning as they spread inland. It'll feel bitterly cold, with temperatures barely rising above freezing, and there'll be a significant wind chill. The showers will continue through the afternoon with the potential for 5 to 10 centimetres of lying snow in areas worst affected. Tuesday will be another seriously cold day with further snow showers along and belts of more persistent snow that will spread southwestwards through the day. The southeast may have a brief respite on Thursday, but the heaviest snow falls in the northeast. But the cold will remain extraordinary, with many places sub-zero all day.
The weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways.
Do stay with us here on Sky News. In a moment, we'll have all the very latest from Leicester, where police are dealing with what they're describing as a major incident tonight. They responded to reports of a large blast in the city centre. They've sent 6 fire engines to the scene. A large fire was seen in some of our pictures earlier. We are now getting the very latest from the East Midlands Ambulance Service, saying that 4 people have been taken to hospital after that reported explosion. Eyewitnesses say that the flames are out, but there's still very thick smoke in the area. We'll bring you all the very latest after the break. You're watching Sky News. Let's bring you now more on the breaking news tonight in Leicester, where a major incident has been declared after reports of an explosion. 6 fire engines are at the scene in Hinckley Road in Leicester. And Sky sources say no early indications that the explosion in Leicester was connected to terrorist activity. So let's find out the latest. Here in the studio with me is our correspondent Joe Tidy. So, Joe, explain what we know that has happened and what the very latest is.
Well, the very latest we're hearing is that 4 people have been taken to the Leicester Royal Infirmary. They are being described as in a critical condition. That's been confirmed by the hospital. they are dealing with a serious situation here, and they've said in their tweet that they're advising people to avoid the area, as are, of course, Leicester Police. And they also say, please only attend A&E if absolutely necessary, possibly alluding to the fact they may be expecting some more casualties from this, what is and was a major explosion, a major fire. Very built-up area of Leicester, very busy part as well, one of the major through roads into the city centre, Hinckley Road. And we know from pictures of the scene that it appears that this explosion may have taken out a two-storey building in a very busy road of shops and takeaways. And this, we believe, was a convenience shop, a corner shop, a Londis-style shop, which may have exploded. And, of course, we know from the opening times of these places, it's likely to have been open when the explosion took place. And the power of this explosion, we're hearing from eyewitnesses, was immense. Someone who we spoke to earlier on said that in her home, 500 metres away, she felt the explosion. So a major incident, police and fire services and the East Midlands Ambulance Service are dealing with as well. And we have heard from them earlier on as well, saying that they have sent their crews as well as their HART teams, their hazardous area response teams to the area. This is a tweet from the police, which we first got this evening at about 7:20, alerting us to this incident. There has been a major incident on Hinckley Road, Leicester. All emergency services are currently dealing with this. Carlisle Street and part of Hinckley Road have been closed. Please avoid the area. There's that message again to the public. Please avoid the area. But of course, that doesn't get heeded quite often in these situations. People do gravitate towards scenes like this to try to find out what's happened and, of course, to offer any help that they may have. And that's how we're getting some of these pictures, which have been put on social media of people close to the area. Since then, the police have extended the cordon out. No one can get very close to it because, of course, the fear here is that there could be further explosions. The fire may not be out entirely, may flare up again. And then, of course, you've got to think about the structural integrity of not only the building where the explosion took place, but also the surrounding buildings. When I've covered things like this before, for example, gas explosions. The force of these explosions can take out buildings around them, or they can make them unstable. Very difficult situation for emergency services. And actually, reading through one of the some detail about the hazard area response teams, they are there to deal with incidents just like this. They're looking for any chemical, biological, radiological, nuclear or other hazardous materials that can be involved in incidents such as this. They're there to deal with people, to treat people who may be injured, but also to treat the emergency services as well, who are dealing with a very serious situation, and some of them will be in harm's way.
That's right, and I think the police did issue a statement earlier. We've not had an update in the last hour or so, have we? But remind us what police said when they first said that they were dealing with this incident and responding to it.
Yeah, we just read out there the tweet that first gave us an indication of what was happening, very brief on detail, but saying that they are dealing with a major incident. Reports, is how they put it, reports of an explosion, and we can see for ourselves here what started as an explosion ended with a very, very serious fire. And since then, they haven't been keeping us updated. Obviously, they're very, very busy. We have had details from East Midlands Ambulance Service saying that they are on the scene and that they've sent their hazard area response teams. And now we are hearing that they have taken 4 people who are critically injured to the Leicester Royal Infirmary to be dealt with there. And they are saying to people, they are saying to the public, please do not attend A&E if absolutely necessary, unless absolutely necessary, because, of course, they are potentially dealing with more casualties as well. We know it's a very busy part of the city. We know that this explosion, we believe it's an explosion, that's what we're getting from all the eyewitnesses. We believe this happened in a shop which may have had people in it, may have been busy. So there is every possibility that we may see more people come out of this situation needing serious medical help. Of course, we don't know anything about that yet. We are only going on what we're hearing from people on the ground and the emergency services as they keep us updated. But of course, once the fire's out, once the buildings are secured, once everyone has been made safe, the police will begin the investigation and try to find out exactly what caused this.
Indeed. Well, Joe, as you say, a lot of the information coming from eyewitnesses and people who have rushed to the scene. One of them was local journalist Laura Shilianu, who I spoke to a little bit earlier. This is what she told me.
As a suspected explosion, I don't know whether it's gas-related. The details are pretty vague. From where I'm standing, they're currently dampening down. They're trying to obviously put the fire out. I can't see flames, but there is thick smoke. It fills the air, and it's so thick you can actually taste it at the back of your throat. A lot of emergency services here, at least 3 fire appliances from where I'm standing, 2 ambulances, a number of police cars. It's got quite a lot of interest locally. A lot of people are obviously standing around concerned. It's basically this area of road. There are local businesses, there are flats above it. It looks like it's one of the local businesses where it's happened. From a few pictures circulating on social media, it looks like the building's completely collapsed. And as I say, just a lot of concern around here. One guy mentioned driving past it and a window pane smashed into his car. Another lady just described hearing an explosion, a big bang, came outside and can just see massive flames coming from the building. But as I mentioned, we don't know exactly what it is that's caused it at this stage.
No, indeed. But from what you can see at the moment, you talked about that thick smoke that, as you said, was so thick you could taste it. But you're saying no flames as far as you can see. Does it look like the fire engines have managed to dampen down that blaze?
Yeah, as I say, the smoke is so thick. I can't see from where I'm standing. Obviously, the police are trying to keep us as far back as possible for safety reasons. I can't see any flames now. It's just literally really thick black smoke. And, yeah, the fire service is currently dealing with it.
And the police themselves, I think, have referred to reports of an explosion. That's what they were responding to. Have you managed to talk to anyone around there that saw and heard what happened at the time?
Yeah, as I mentioned, so I spoke to one lady who just heard a massive bang. One guy mentioned he thought it sounded like a bomb. But as I say, we don't quite know what caused it. But, I mean, it looks like extensive damage. As I say, some pictures that have been circulating, when just after it had happened, there were huge orange flames coming from it. And as I say, the building just looks like it's completely collapsed.
So that was Laura Ciliano talking to me earlier, a local reporter who was very quick at the scene. So the latest information that we're getting from the authorities is coming from the East Midlands Ambulance Service. They say that 4 people have been taken to hospital after that reported explosion, and they're saying that those patients are in a critical condition. We'll, of course, keep across all the very latest on this situation in Leicester, being described as a major incident by police, and all the very latest throughout the evening. New research has found that firefighters have a 3 times higher risk of dying from cancer because of exposure to alarmingly high levels of dangerous chemicals. Scientists at the University of Central Lancashire found that cancerous substances left on firefighters' protective clothing after exposure to smoke can be absorbed through their skin. The Fire Brigades Union has described the findings as shocking, as Lisa Dowd reports.
Every shift, their kit is checked. Safety is always a priority.
So this is an example of one of our kit hanging rooms.
It's Jim's job to see if any more can be done.
We can clearly see evidence of contamination within the equipment itself.
He's taking steps to minimise firefighters' exposure to toxic chemicals and potentially cancer.
Simple things that fire crews can do post-fire. You know, when they take their fire kit off, they make sure when they return to the fire station that it's sent in to be laundered properly. Any damage is also repaired. The firefighters take showers post-fire, but also we'll shortly be issuing much larger wet wipes, so post-incident they can take their fire kit off and they can clean their hands, particularly the neck and the head area and the face.
New research has found that the death rate from cancer in firefighters is up to 3 times higher than the general population. Andy Collis spent 30 years fighting fires. Just weeks after retiring, he began his fight against thyroid cancer.
It did go through my mind that my job may have been a cause of the cancer, but you don't really know, do you? I mean, early on in my career, when we used to go to car fires and rubbish fires, we never used to wear breathing apparatus. So all the fumes and the nasty toxins that were in the smoke, we did, unfortunately, through no fault of our own, take it in.
Experts were shocked to see some firefighters entering Grenfell Tower without breathing apparatus, exposing them to toxins. When Dave joined 9 years ago, he never thought about cancer. Now it's on his mind.
Materials such as plastics, foams, synthetics, they are common kind of materials in most domestic properties. Once those materials are involved in fire, they give off cancer-causing substances. So for us, that's an extra risk for firefighters. And so we've got to be kind of wise to limit the exposure of those substances.
The study mirrors findings in America and Europe. And a new survey of the health of Britain's 40,000 firefighters could further reveal the scale of what they really face. Lisa Dowd, Sky News, Hales Owen.
North Korea has said it's willing to restart direct talks with America. The announcement came as a high-level delegation from the north crossed the border amid protests to attend the closing ceremony of the Winter Olympics. 16 days of sliding, skiing, jumping and sweeping saw the British team celebrate its most successful games ever. Adele Robinson reports.
Amid the spectacle, despite international political tensions, this was a closing ceremony marking the end of a peaceful Games. The Russians, however, were banned from parading under their own flag after positive doping tests.
The IOC Executive Board today decided, first, not to lift the suspension of the Russian Olympic Committee for the closing ceremony of the Olympic Winter Games Pyeongchang 2018.
As Team GB celebrated its best performance ever in a Winter Games, it emerged British athletes had discussed boycotting the ceremony if Russia had been allowed to fly their flag.
We talked about it, absolutely we did, but we came to the conclusion the right thing to do is march for the sake of the athletes. It's their games, it's their opportunity to enjoy themselves tonight, so that probably would have been the wrong thing to do.
But for Russia, some good news. Their Olympic suspension could be lifted soon if there are no further positive doping tests.
Any true competitor, any true champion admires winning fairly more than winning in general. And some people get lost in that, and they make winning their end goal rather than winning well and winning with a conscience. So, yeah, cheating's cheating.
Meanwhile, on the North and South Korean border, protesters tried to block a northern delegation from getting to the ceremony. All because of this man, Kim Yong-chol, a former North Korean military chief accused of being behind a deadly 2010 attack on a South Korean warship.
Moon Jae-in, President of Korea, is a strong sympathizer to North Korean dictator. We are protesters.
As the Olympic flag passed to Beijing, a statement saying North Korea had expressed willingness to hold talks with Washington was released. And as the celebrations drew to a close, on the surface at least, a general feeling of international goodwill appeared to stretch to politics. Adele Robinson, Sky News.
You're watching Sky News. All the latest in just a moment on the situation in Leicester, which police have described as a major incident. The latest news from East Midlands Ambulance Service is that 4 people have been taken to hospital after the reported explosion in the centre of the city, which has prompted 6 fire engines to the scene after a huge blaze. We'll bring you all the very latest after this short break.
Hi, I'm Hannah Stott with the latest showbiz news. A warning, some flash photography is coming up. Reality TV star Kylie Jenner has wiped £1 billion off the stock market value of Snapchat after tweeting that she no longer used the messaging app following its redesign. She posted, "So, does anyone else not open Snapchat anymore, or is it just me?" It was retweeted over 56,000 times. Harvey Weinstein has apologised to Meryl Streep and Jennifer Lawrence after his lawyers cited them in asking a court to dismiss a sexual misconduct lawsuit. A spokeswoman for the disgraced movie mogul said that Weinstein has also directed his legal representatives not to use specific names of actors and former associates in the future. And props and costumes worn by some of DC Comics' most heroic and notorious characters are going on display at the O2 Arena. A Batman suit worn by Christian Bale, Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn attire from Suicide Squad, Heath Ledger's Joker outfit and Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman clothing are among many of the costumes on show at the exhibition. The event, DC Exhibition Dawn of Superheroes, moves to London after a successful showing in Paris and celebrates DC Comics history and most revered heroes and villains.
Well, it's pretty fantastic. It's nothing I ever imagined would happen, but it's really wonderful. And I just think I like this exhibition particularly because it does induct people into the process that of understanding that anything you see on the screen has somehow started with a drawing, an idea, a thought, or someone's writing right at the beginning, which is a thing that tends to get forgotten, I think. So, and it illustrates my job, really.
Let's bring you some more on the breaking news tonight in Leicester, where a major incident has been declared after reports of an explosion. 6 fire engines are at the scene in Hinckley Road in Leicester. Sky sources say that no early indications that the explosion was connected to terrorist activity, but there are plenty of people at the scene trying to establish the cause, as well as, of course, make sure that the surrounding buildings are safe. East Midlands Ambulance Service say 4 people have been taken to hospital. They are understood to be in a critical condition, but they also say that there are doctors who still remain at the scene. There's quite a wide cordon area. We know that a fairly large number of properties have also been evacuated and a large number of emergency services still at the scene. So we'll keep you, of course, updated throughout the evening. In the meantime, let's take a look at some of the day's other news now. And the Nigerian government has confirmed that 110 girls remain missing a week after a Boko Haram attack on a girls' school in the north of the country. The country's president has called the disappearances a national disaster. The Islamist militant group also abducted 276 girls from a school in 2014. 4 years on, about 100 of those girls have not been returned to their families, with many forced to marry their captors. A British man has died after falling from a cliff in the French Alps after he and 2 other skiers ventured off-piste. Another man was also injured in the accident in the Alpe d'Huez ski resort. A spokesman at the Mountain Rescue Unit in Grenoble said that the 3 skiers had taken a wrong turn and were attempting to climb upwards when 2 of the men fell. One of India's biggest film stars has died at the age of 54. Sridevi Kapoor made her debut in 1979 and starred in some of Bollywood's most popular films. Her family said she died in Dubai after suffering a heart attack.
On air, on Spreaker, Facebook at SJ Radio Series 10. This is Newsbeat.
Okay, count out to 10 o'clock. We'll get the 10 o'clock news for yourself in just a couple of seconds. Time for yourself. Also, other news stories, of course, that major incident at the moment of the two-storey building's collapses in the blast.
Radio News.
So as far as we know so far, the two-storey building has collapsed in the blast and major incident in Leicester. At least 6 fire engines, 4 people has been taken to hospital in critical condition. The affected property of a two-storey building of a loft conversion specialist search and rescue teams has been sent to the scene, including a search and rescue dog. Major incident declared by police in Leicester after reports of a explosion. Speaking to Sky News, Pat Middleton. So we'll try and get you more as it happens with you for another couple of hours from the BBC and 5 Live and Sky News. There, we're just about to join Sky BBC News at 10 o'clock with a more detailed review of what's happened in Leicester. That's happening in about 30 seconds time. Stand by for that one. Is coming out to now though, exactly 10 o'clock. Okay, it's exactly 10 o'clock. Let's join the Sky. Let's join the BBC News at 10 o'clock with Hugh Edwards.
Labour calls for the UK to remain in a customs union after Brexit. The party says it would be best for trade and for the Northern Ireland border, and warns the government it may not have parliamentary support for its vision of Brexit. With both Jeremy Corbyn and Theresa May giving major speeches this week, we'll be asking where Labour's shift leaves the government. Also tonight. More fighting between the Syrian government and rebel groups in the Damascus suburb of eastern Ghouta. In Leicester, emergency services deal with a major incident after an explosion and fire. On the campaign trail in Italy, how far-right politicians are drawing big crowds ahead of next week's election. Song and celebration as the Winter Olympics that mixed sport and politics come to an end. And tributes to one of Bollywood's leading ladies, Sridevi, who's died at the age of 54.
On air, on Spreaker, Facebook at SJ Radio Series 10. This is Newsbeat with Jamie Gay.
Good evening. Labour wants the UK to remain in a customs union with the EU after Brexit, according to the Shadow Brexit Secretary. Sir Keir Starmer said today that a new treaty replicating the existing customs arrangement would be best for the economy and respect the referendum result. The Prime Minister is committed to leaving both the single market and the customs union. She's expected to outline the government's position in more detail this week. Our political correspondent Ben Wright reports.
When it comes to trading with the EU after Brexit, there is now clear water between the government and Labour. In a speech tomorrow, Jeremy Corbyn will confirm his party would keep the UK in a customs union with the EU.
Crunch time is now coming for the Prime Minister because the majority in Parliament does not back her approach to a customs union.
Labour's Brexit spokesman said the UK would be better off teaming up with the EU to reach new trade deals with other countries.
Obviously, it's the only way realistically to get tariff-free access. It's really important for our manufacturing base. And nobody can answer the question how you keep your commitment to no hard border in Northern Ireland without a customs union.
As an EU member, we are currently in the European Customs Union, and the idea behind it is pretty simple. A single set of tariffs is imposed on goods imported from outside the EU. Goods can then move freely without tariffs around the bloc. But members cannot do their own trade deals. The EU also has a single market, which allows capital, services and people to move freely around member states. The government says we'll leave the customs union and the single market after Brexit. Some Labour MPs want their party to commit to both.
It's a massive hit on our economy if we leave the single market, if we leave the customs union. It's a massive hit to peace in Northern Ireland if we leave the customs union. These are core Labour values.
But Brexit-supporting Labour MPs argue the party risks betraying their own voters.
You come up, Stella, with all these things. Oh, we'll stay in a customs union, we'll stay in a single market. The decision was quite clear to leave. And there in the north, Labour voters voted very clear. Are you going to rat on them or not?
The Brexit negotiation is not only a haggle between the UK government and the EU. Parliament's role is critical too. Theresa May does not have an overall majority in the Commons, and a number of Tory MPs also argue that the UK should have a customs union with the EU. So a vote when it comes could force the government to change its position. The government insists the UK must be free to have an independent trade policy after Brexit outside a customs union.
Labour say they want to join a customs union. What does that mean? Is it like Turkey, which has a customs union but only in goods, but not in agriculture, not in services, not in finance? Is that what we want for Britain? Will we take rules in certain sectors but not in others?
Liam Fox also said the government would try and persuade all Tory MPs about the government's position before putting a trade bill before MPs, which at the moment looks like it could be defeated if Labour joins Tory rebels in calling for a new customs union. Which is why the impact of Labour's policy shift could be very significant. Now, today, a couple of the Conservative MPs who also want a customs union between the EU and the UK after Brexit repeated that demand. So the cross-party potential is there to blow the government's preferred plan out of the water. But a vote could be a long way off, and a lot could happen before then, including on Friday what's billed as a very important speech by Theresa May on Brexit, in which she's expected to set out in more detail precisely how the government wants to get frictionless free trade with the EU outside the customs union, a speech that will be closely watched by the EU and sceptics within the Prime Minister's own party.
Ben, thank you very much. Ben Wright. Fighting is continuing in the Damascus suburb of Eastern Ghouta, a day after the UN Security Council passed a resolution calling for a ceasefire to be implemented there. The Syrian government is trying to retake the area from rebels, some of whom are linked to extremist groups. Our Middle East editor Jeremy Bowen has this report. You may find some of it distressing.
This was inside Eastern Ghouta. In almost 7 years of war in Syria, real ceasefires have been rare, ineffective and short. The UN couldn't agree on a start time for the ceasefire. The best they could do was to say, without delay. That is elastic enough to wreck this ceasefire's chances.
Today is the first day post the ceasefire resolution. Still there is war plane in the atmosphere, still shelling, but the level is less than before.
Civilians are still being killed. Civil defense workers dug a badly injured baby out of this bomb site. Already the Russians say Jaish al-Islam, the main armed group in the enclave, has broken the ceasefire. It says it's forced to fight back.
When the regime is not abiding by the UN resolution, I cannot stand still and watch and not defend myself and our families in Ghouta.
This boy and the men with him are, we're told, victims of a chlorine attack. When it's weaponized, chlorine is banned under international law. The Russians claim this is fake, part of a plan to discredit the Syrian army. Whether you believe these pictures or the Russians, it is another bad sign for the ceasefire. The Syrian army is dug in around Eastern Ghouta, reported to be pushing forward. Ceasefire or not, it can sense victory. Well, ceasefires need both goodwill and self-interest if they're to have a chance. The ceasefires the Syrian regime likes best are ones that lead to surrenders, which is what's happened in all the other rebel enclaves around Damascus. Now, let's hope this is a proper humanitarian ceasefire because millions of people in Syria need aid. But I'm afraid to say, Michelle, history is against it.
Jeremy, thank you. Jeremy Bowen. A major incident has been declared in Leicester after a large explosion destroyed a shop and a home above it. 4 people have been taken to hospital. Our correspondent Jeremy Ball is at the scene now. Jeremy, what more can you tell us?
Well, Michelle, it's around 3 hours since this explosion happened, but there's still thick, acrid smoke drifting across the scene. Now, people who live here describe hearing such a loud bang that it sounded something like an earthquake. What we understand is that a shop described as a Polish convenience store has been completely destroyed. It's understood that a number of people live in a flat above that shop. Now, we've just seen search and rescue dogs go into the scene. There is, we're told now, a search and rescue operation going on. 4 people we know have been taken to hospital, but clearly the building will have to be searched to find out if anybody else is trapped in the wreckage. We can still see flames coming out of the building, so this is still very much an ongoing incident, and it won't be until that search is finished that the investigation will be able to begin to find out exactly what's happened here.
Jeremy Ball in Leicester, thank you. After 16 days of competition, the Winter Olympics in South Korea have drawn to a close with a colourful ceremony featuring nearly 3,000 athletes. The politics which underpinned much of the Games were evident again today as North Korea signalled its willingness to hold talks with the United States. Laura Bicker reports from Pyeongchang.
Korea. This is the confident side of South Korea. Modern, dynamic, and edgy. The perfect stage for a record-breaking British team. 5 medals in these Winter Games. This year will be remembered by Russia too. Its athletes still not allowed to fly their flag after a doping ban. It will be lifted if no more cases arise. We were taken on a journey through time, a mix of old and new. Vivaldi's 4 Seasons, led by a 13-year-old shredding his guitar. And backed by 80 traditional Korean instruments. But much of the drama in Pyeongchang was political. Entering this arena is the US President's daughter Ivanka Trump. Hugs for the South Korean First Lady. But no warm reception for the North Korean general sitting behind her. There was no contact between the two, but it does seem that Pyongyang is now ready to talk to the US. A victory for the South Korean leader, President Moon. Unlike the opening ceremony, athletes from the 2 Koreas flew their own country's colours, highlighting the division despite the diplomacy. Critics fear the North has been given too much of a platform at these Games. The minister responsible for talks between the 2 Koreas says Pyongyang is being pushed on its nuclear weapons.
We did convey the message to the North Koreans multiple times. It is necessary that North Korea and the United States talks to each other to solve this in a peaceful manner.
But at the end of this Olympic reverie, there could be a dose of reality. This show of harmony has given South Korea some breathing space, but tension still lurks in the background.
Unfortunately, it's not going to last. North Koreans are entirely separating. They've stated from the first meeting that the nuclear issue has nothing to do with the cooperation between the 2 Koreas concerning the Olympic Games.
And so Pyeongchang bids farewell to the Olympic flame. And many wonder what could be next for the 2 Koreas.
These Games are ending just as they began, with a major diplomatic breakthrough. North Korea has said it is willing to talk to the United States. There's still the huge problem of its nuclear weapons programme, but this is the first progress made on this peninsula in years. Laura Bicker, BBC News, Pyeongchang.
More than 1,000 people have taken part in a march in the centre of Belfast, calling for action on the legacy of Northern Ireland's troubles. The march was organised by a number of groups representing people who lost their lives. They say promises to deal with the past, including a 5-year plan to complete outstanding inquests, have been broken. China's ruling Communist Party is expected to abandon a rule limiting the time a president can serve in office, a move which could see the current leader Xi Jinping stay on indefinitely. He had been due to step down in 2023 after 10 years in the job. The change will be seen as further evidence of his growing hold on power. Italians head to the polls in a week after a general election campaign that has seen populist politicians come to the fore. They've been leading opinion polls, with Italians worried about their sluggish economy, frustrated with the EU and angry about migration. Our Europe editor Katia Adler reports from Milan.
In Italy this election season, populism, rather than policy, is the undisputed vote winner. Italians flock to those who say they're listening, to their frustrations with the status quo. Matteo Salvini leads the hard-right anti-immigration Lega party.
It's almost more pop star than politician. All of Matteo Salvini's supporters hoping he can make it to Prime Minister with his slogan, Italy First.
Per le persone che le descrive come un populista. What do you say to those who call you a racist populist? I asked.
I don't respond to insults, but I'm proud to be a populist, if it means being amongst people solving their problems.
Immigration is seen as a big problem here. Around 700,000 mainly African migrants arrived here by boat over the past few years. Many asylum claims are rejected. People go underground. The police said we needed an escort to visit these illegally occupied buildings in Turin. We clearly weren't welcome. Recent attacks by migrants and against migrants in Italy, plus widespread pre-election anti-immigration rhetoric, have stoked tensions here.
OK, off we go. Off we go.
The mayor of Turin is from another populist big hitter party.
It's wonderful. It's wonderful.
The controversial Five-Star Movement, anti-migration, Eurosceptic and very anti-establishment. Mayor Appendino took me for a spin in her intentionally non-bling electric car.
We have had an important crisis, economic crisis. People don't like this establishment because there are no solutions and poverty is increasing. So what they see in us. Many of us are young and they never did politics before, and they see in us a way to get out of the crisis, a way to find new solutions.
With populists so popular here, should Europe brace itself for turmoil in Italy, the Eurozone's third largest economy, after these elections? Well, not quite.
Remember him? Yes, Berlusconi is back. And the irony of the populist outbreak in Italy is that a man who disappeared from politics, surrounded by scandal, has now returned and is able to present himself as calm elder statesman.
Silvio Berlusconi can't run for office because of a conviction for tax fraud, but his party will likely have a key role in forming the next Italian government. Which is why, despite all the political rhetoric here, young voters fear little will actually change in Italy after these elections.
In this election, nobody is speaking about young people in the proper way.
Most of our schoolmates are right now unemployed. There's no hope in future.
Voter turnout in these elections is expected to be high. Italians are engaged and angry. Katia Adler, BBC News, Milan.
One more now on the last day at the Winter Olympics and the rest of the sport. Let's join Karthi Nanasegaram. Hello, Karthi.
Hello, thank you. Winter Olympics in a moment. But first, Manchester City have won their first trophy under manager Pep Guardiola. City beat Arsenal 3-0 in the Carabao Cup final, but Guardiola didn't go up to collect the trophy, saying it was for the club and not for him. Natalie Perks reports from Wembley.
Worthy winners.
Winning trophies is nothing new for Manchester City, but Pep Guardiola was probably surprised at just how simple the first of his reign was. The day started in crisp London sunshine. Yellow ribbons caught the eye. Guardiola again defying the FA by wearing his for imprisoned Catalan politicians. Arsene Wenger has never won the League Cup. He had reason to look pensive. Manchester City aren't known for Route 1 football. But from a goal kick, Sergio Aguero outmuscled Arsenal's defence with ease. Sergio Aguero! That lob was rather cheeky too. From woeful defenders to wonderful, Vincent Kompany, so often out-injured, popped up with an important contribution. And just look what it meant to him. Fans were celebrating, but City weren't quite done yet. On a night where City's old guard came up trumps, Arsenal fans were left wondering just how they got it so wrong. Arsene Wenger had said this was Arsenal's chance to show they were on City's level. At times, they didn't appear to be on the same planet. This trophy remains elusive for Wenger, but for Guardiola, it could be the first of many. The treble is still very much on. Natalie Perks, BBC News, Wembley.
The final day of the Winter Olympics may not have provided any medals for Great Britain, but the team has been reflecting on its most successful Winter Games. Andy Swiss reports from Pyeongchang.
Britain's Olympic journey here hasn't always been the smoothest. 17th and 18th for the much-touted bobsleighers, a disappointing finish. But their misses have been matched by medals.
Arnold wins gold again! Laura Deans has won bronze as well!
A record 5 in total.
Billy Morgan, yes!
After some £30 million of funding, they haven't come cheap, but the team believe they're worth it.
We're very happy. This is a historic Games for us. It's our best ever Winter Olympics. We had 3 medals in one day on that Saturday. We had back-to-back gold medals with Lizzie Arnold.
But the greatest feat came in the cross-country skiing, as Norway sealed their place at the top of the medals table thanks to the most decorated Winter Olympian of all time. Marit Bjørgen winning her 15th medal, a glorious finale to a glittering career. And so a spectacular end to a Games which has seen some stunning global performances, and for the British team with their record winter medal tally, unprecedented success. Andy Swiss, BBC News, Pyeongchang.
Ben Stokes' bowling has been described as brilliant by the England cricket captain Owen Morgan. Stokes played for the international team for the first time since September, but his 2 wickets couldn't save England, who lost the first one-day international against New Zealand by 3 wickets. And the day's football results and the latest from the Women's Six Nations are on the BBC website. Michelle.
Kathy, thank you. The Indian actress Sridevi, who starred in nearly 300 Bollywood films, has died of a heart attack at the age of 54. She started acting in childhood and went on to be one of the first female stars to command box office success, whether or not she had a prominent male co-star. Rajini Vaidyanathan looks back at her life.
For decades, she was Bollywood's leading lady. Sridevi captivated audiences with her charisma and comic timing. And in a male-dominated film industry, she was one of the first women to become a megastar in her own right.
You know, the audience just want a good film. That's what mattered. Whether it is a heroine-oriented or the hero-oriented film.
Sridevi was attending a family wedding with her husband and daughter in Dubai when she suffered a heart attack late on Saturday night. As news of her death broke, crowds gathered outside her house in Mumbai. Across India, fans paid tribute.
Her death is a loss to our country, to the film industry. She was such a role model to all women across the country. Now you've got a lot of famous leading ladies in Bollywood, but I think like back then, like in the 80s and like the early 90s, there weren't too many of them, and she was one of the first.
India is mourning the loss of one of its brightest stars. One film producer described the impact of Sridevi's death, saying that she was a pioneer who put the early cracks in the glass ceiling of Bollywood and paved the way for today's female film stars.
Sridevi will be remembered for the way she lit up the screen. She left the world of Bollywood way too soon, but her legacy is enduring.
Sridevi Kapoor, who's died aged 54. That's all from us. Time now for the news, wherever you are. Good night.
Good evening. There have been chaotic scenes at Redhill train station as hundreds of people were forced to queue for replacement bus services. The southern train service between Redhill and Three Bridges has been suspended due to engineering works. Police were called to manage the large crowd. People travelling between London Gatwick and Brighton were affected. Local residents used their own cars to get people out. A car fire on the M25 motorway has caused major travel disruption. The vehicle fire started near Godstone between Junction 6 and Junction 5. One lane was closed. Traffic is now flowing normally. A Sussex MP says a report on autism he helped to write must be acted upon and not allowed to gather dust. Hugh Merriman, the MP for Bexhill and Battle, found children are still being failed by the education system despite a change in the law that was meant to make things better. Linda Hardy has more.
Jodie Coxon from Sittingbourne has two sons, both on the autistic spectrum. Getting the right support for them in school has taken a long battle over years.
7 years of hard work, 4 years of fighting for a school with Cameron, 6 primary schools, and they're now finally where they need to be.
15-year-old Cameron found mainstream schools so overwhelming he lapsed into depression and self-harming.
At my old school, I was getting really angry quite often over really minor things. Now I've gotten the help I needed and everything, and I've caught up with all of the work I've needed to do.
Hugh Merriman says change is needed.
What's absolutely essential is that all the recommendations we have in there, and we have many, in terms of making sure that every single pupil and parent knows their rights under the Act, that local authorities look at best practice, always make sure they've got a suitable school within their system, and that government sets all this out. And we have great training, not just for new teachers, but existing teachers.
The government says it is considering the autism report and that money is there to support the new special educational system for children and their families. Linda Hardy, BBC South East Today.
A 13-year-old girl has been arrested following a fire in Deal in which 120 cars were reportedly damaged. Fire crews spent 7 hours at the scene on Friday. There are no reports of any injuries. The teenager was arrested on suspicion of arson and released pending further inquiries. A giant piece of electrical equipment has been given a police escort in West Sussex. The electricity transformer weighs 330 tonnes and is 15 feet wide. It took around 7 hours to travel by road from the port of Shoreham to Henfield, a distance of 9 miles. Roads were closed to allow the convoy to make its way to the national grid. Thousands of runners enjoyed the cold and fresh conditions during the Brighton Half Marathon. It's the 28th year for the event. It's the largest of its kind in the southeast. The race began at 9 this morning. The winner crossed the finishing line around an hour later. Now, it was a cold weekend and it's going to be colder next week. Let's find out how cold with Lucy Martin.
Hello there. Winter is certainly back as we move into the next week. Temperatures starting to fall away and also the risk of some snow today, although cold was bright. This photo sent in earlier by one of our weather watchers. So we're in for a cold night tonight, the cloud tending to increase from the east as we move through tonight with a risk of 1 or 2 snow showers. Overnight lows of -3 degrees Celsius. A few of us could wake up to a light dusting of snow first thing. A cold and frosty start to the day. There will be a mixture of sunny spells and snow showers. There is a yellow weather warning in place from the Met Office for snow. Temperatures tomorrow struggling though, a maximum of 3 degrees Celsius. That brisk northeasterly breeze really taking the edge off. As we move into Tuesday then, another weather warning in place, this time an amber warning for snow. We could see a substantial amount of snow through the morning and that could cause some disruption. Into the afternoon though, brightening up with a mixture of sunny spells and snow showers. Another very cold start to the day. On Wednesday we'll see a mixture of sunny spells and snow showers. As such, there is another yellow weather warning in place from the Met Office valid through the day. Temperatures starting to fall away though as we get to midweek, struggling to get above freezing. So as we move into the next working week, winter is certainly back. It will turn increasingly cold with the risk of some snow.
That's it from the weekend team. Leanne Rinney will have your update tomorrow morning, but from all of us here, do have a good evening. Bye-bye.